Thank you very much. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker. Many of you have met her before. She has actually spoken to us before, but I'll start with this. Reverend Liz Moranti has been a minister with CSL, Centers for Spiritual Living, not supposed to abbreviate these things, since 1999, receiving her ordination in 2003. Don't do the math. Reverend Liz hails from the Seattle area where she did her ministerial training and served on the staff of CSL Seattle for 14 years, as well as raising her two daughters. Between two several-month stints teaching for the center in Ukraine, Liz served as senior minister of the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living from 2008 to 13. Liz is delighted to be back in the Pacific Northwest as of June 2018, not retiring, but rewiring. A quote from the Sufi master, Meher Baba, encapsulates the theme of Liz's ministry. Where love is present, the path to truth is joyous. I give you Reverend Liz.
Good morning. I don't usually need to make that kind of entrance, but we had a last-minute sound change. It's fun to be here when everything is new and getting practiced and used. So first of all, congratulations, CSL Olympia, woo! And they'll adjust if I'm a little loud. This is just such an awesome space, and what a testament to your vision, your commitment. And yeah, David, no, yes, of course. But I mean, a lot of you have been around here for quite a while, and I've been visiting you guys almost since the inception of this community. So I thought the school was beautiful. This is amazing. So I'm so grateful that Reverend David trusted me to be here, and grateful to be with you all on this really kind of, besides an auspicious day, month for you, really it feels like a very auspicious talk. I know that this year is Living Everyday Wonder, and which I think is really very cool, and this month is Work, which is, a lot of us aren't 9-to-5ing it anymore, but we still remember, and we still have projects and everything that we're doing. But why I consider this auspicious is that the notion of living everyday wonder informs so beautifully today's topic of failing forward. That the awareness of the possibility of everyday wonder to accompany us is precisely what allows us to fail forward instead of just to fail. It allows us to understand it, hold it, interpret it differently, failure than we might have. So let's get started with the traditional idea of failure, or maybe what we grew up with. Does anybody grow up with the idea of failure as a bad thing? I had it prepared in case you're all like, no, man, my parents. So, you know, we were brought up that failure is not a good thing. And I think the worst thing about failure is that somewhere in our minds, there's the idea that failure is the final word on my life, on my being, on my contribution to life. That's it. It's the last page. It's all she wrote. So I, being a good minister, religious science minister, said, well, let's see what my dictionary, which is like, this is from the spine, it's this thick, says about failure. The first definition, and I always kind of think that's one of like the mainest ones to look at. Mainest is a very particular and high-end word, very technical, is to fall short of a goal. But bum. Does that say to be miserable the rest of your life, or evidence that you are totally blank, 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 blank. I'm not coming up with anything that's not a four-letter word. That you are messed up, that you are a loser, here for you, loser. That isn't in there. It just says to fall short of a goal. It means you didn't quite get there. Now, I know some of our families are type A, and if you don't, what was it in Pitch Perfect? If you don't succeed, don't come home. Most of us didn't quite live in that kind of family. But where we get this idea that failure is an end point when it's just a point of this moment. It's a point of evaluation. And that really, and this won't be a new concept, in fact, a lot of this won't be a new concept to those of you who've been in this teaching for a long time. The problem with failure is what? How we think about it. The conclusion that we draw from this thing we're calling not quite having gotten to where we thought we'd be or where we wanted to be. In physics, and I always have to do this really quick because I was not one of those people that really understood physics. I had to get it really simplistic. But in the field of all possibilities, we know that anything can be happening and in fact is, not just on the bizarro planet, all happening simultaneously. And when we draw a conclusion, we collapse all those possibilities into whatever we've concluded. So if we've said, I have failed, I have messed up, this is bad, I am bad, I'm a loser, then we've collapsed into that possibility. And we also know that this has something to do with what that we are taught in this teaching? The law. We have just told the law what is going to be so, and the law says, okay, I will execute through your life failure now that you have claimed this for yourself. So we know Edison, 10,000 tries before he got the light bulb, and he said, I didn't fail, I just found 10,000 ways it didn't work. I could tell you about some of the things that I have found many, many ways that don't work. Like keeping a neat house, yeah. Light-colored couch, a way that doesn't work. A black table that shows dust, yeah, doesn't work. So we all have those places where we, did I fail? No. I learned some things that didn't work. One person, I think this was Einstein, said, failure is success in progress. I love that. Failure is success in progress. And then remember, some of you remember Clarissa Pinkola Estes, Running with the Wolves? She said, fairy tales are 10 pages long. But that's not the truth of us. We are multi-volume sets. You get that? Our lives are multi-volume sets. Whatever this one falling short is not the final page. So knock it off. So the first thing, as we know, is how are we thinking about this? How are we defining it? And that actually folds into, I thought I would be a good student of Kathy Ann Lewis, who I was trained under. Her talks, still to this day, she gives you 3 things to do. That isn't always how it unfolds for me, but today I have 3 things to do to assist you in failing forward. So the first thing is stop. Boop. And you've fallen short of the goal. You're disappointed and whatever else. Stop. Say, what am I thinking right now? What am I concluding right now? What am I telling myself and the law about me? And by the way, for those of you who are not familiar with the idea of the law is actually an aspect of God or the divine or the universe that acts mathematically, automatically. It's been talked about for millennia, and it is that thing Jesus was talking about when he said, it is done unto you as you believe, that the law, an aspect of the universe, takes the impress of our thoughts, is how Ernest Holmes, our founder, said it, but it takes the pattern, the tendency of our thoughts, and delivers it back in our life. So we get what we expect, kind of thing. So just in case. And if that's interesting to you, you need to take a class. Ding, 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 take a class. That's how you use this stuff. Okay, so we stop. We say, what have I been thinking and concluding about myself, about life? And so we have to and say, okay, wait a minute. What do I know is true of God? And if you're not sure of some ideas of God, it's great to ask a practitioner or somebody who's been coming here a long time. Oh, let me trip over. I was going to fail sideways. That God is the field of infinite possibilities. That's what Deepak Chopra calls God. And God is ever evolving. That's why our concept of God is ever evolving, which doesn't sound like something that stays stuck or falls behind. And one of my favorite taglines for this teaching that we often forget is that whatever is true of God is also true of me, is also true of you. And if it isn't true of God, it can't be true of you. And God is not a failure. We also know from AA, God does not create junk. So if God is ever evolving, that doesn't sound to me like a force that looks at our missteps or our falling short and says, done, too bad. If God is ever evolving, then we are as we move forward. And again, to underscore what I said earlier, what Ernest Holmes says, only our thinking can bind us. It is only our thinking that holds us back. So when we stop and reconsider, examine all the things that we're thinking about ourselves and about the universe, we lean into that everyday wonder to remind us. More to come. Second step is look. And this is kind of evaluation, both forwards and backwards. That we look at what we did up to this point where we fell short and see what could I learn from this? What do I see? And instead of seeing, this is key here. We had to have the first step to kind of remember, get our thinking, our bloated nothingness out of the way. Because if you're down on yourself, what are you going to look, how are you going to evaluate? You're just going to say, boy, was that stupid, I did that, I did that, I did that. But once you're in that place that I am an ever-evolving being, oh, you know what? Let's do this. Why don't you repeat after me? I am an ever-evolving being.
I am an ever-evolving being.
So as an ever-evolving being, I can now look at what I did. Oh, maybe that was problematic. Well, that was probably useful, but maybe that wasn't so much. Clearly that kind of caused things to go a little sideways. Oh, okay. And then another key question, which I learned quite a while ago, is what was I pretending not to see? What was I pretending not to listen to? When I say human potential movement, does anybody know what? Some of you do. Okay, it's when awareness trainings came into being, you know, when we did EST and LifeSpring and all these things we were running around. We did this whole day looking at things in our lives that really didn't work well and say, what were you pretending not to know? And people told their stories, first as the victim of this thing, and then taking that idea, that paradigm, that lens, everybody could find some way, something they'd sort of ignored, that it contributed to something that they deemed not great that had happened in their life. So, again, no shame, no blame. This is for our learning. Oh, what was I not paying attention to? And all that feeds into our further evolution. Then, as we look forward, part of this looking, we say, okay, we go within. What is being shown to be now? Oh, they don't like butter on their popcorn. Okay, then. It's when the movie viewing party was not a success. Oh, they don't like that, so something new is going to be shown. Maybe I can ask them. That was a very strange example. Yeah, I spent hours preparing that one. So, what is being shown now? That I know that I'm that ever-evolving being. What am I being shown? What new opportunities might there be? Which, again, we're not going to see if we're beating ourselves up for not having done it perfectly the first time. There are always, especially when we remember to lean into wonder, new opportunities being shown. And in fact, it's often this taking us up short that has us look for new opportunities. One of Edison's great quotes that I do remember, besides 10,000 things that didn't work, is that when you feel you've exhausted all possibilities, you haven't. So we look. We look. The third step is kind of really three steps, but they're all re's, R-E. So repent, re-choose, recommit. Now, I always love it if I get a chance to talk about repentance in a Science of Mind church, but for those of you who think it means wear a hair shirt and beat yourself, which actually is a thing that used to happen in Hebrew culture, but repent most simply means get back on the right road. When we've wandered off in behaviors, in habits, in saying things and thinking that really doesn't work, isn't who we know ourselves to be, isn't who we want to be, we repent, we just get back on the right road. Jesus said, go and sin no more. We just get back on the right road. So that's our thinking. So we, again, get conscious of that. Okay, I've gotten myself back on the right road. And then we re-choose as we look at whatever this project was, or where we want to go from now, we say, what do I really want? And what do I really want to experience? In the midst of this seeming failure or not quite getting there, I need to re-choose. What do I really want? Maybe I've discovered I didn't even want that thing at the end. But we get to re-choose, and when we ask ourselves, what do I want? And almost more importantly, what do I want to experience? We are giving ourselves great information to craft a spiritual mind treatment or an affirmative prayer. Those are the key things to know. So we need to choose what we want to do here. And if you don't know what spiritual mind treatment is, you again need to take a class or go see Buffy or one of the other practitioners so that they can assist you and support you as you re-choose what you want and what you want to experience through that. The third thing is we recommit. When we're looking at that goal or that project, we recommit, but in a larger sense. We recommit to what recently we've seen people call the big why, our individual big whys. What am I really about? What do I want to be about in my life? What is my big why that inspires me? And, you know, maybe it's not going to be, I want to succeed here because I want everybody to think I'm cool. You know, you probably have a bigger, deeper why under that why. So that's recommitting to your purpose. And maybe it's committing for the first time. And what I like to think, those of us who have found our way here, underneath a lot of the whys is the idea of letting God work through me. However it does, however uniquely it does, because God, the coolest thing about it looking like there's more than one, we prayed in this morning to the idea of oneness, but the coolest thing about this thing called planet Earth and human life is that it looks like there's a, even though we're one, God is going to work differently through each of you. I can see just by the way you've shown up in your dress, and it's so cool. Look at the different ways beauty shows up. It's awesome. And so when we recommit to allowing God to work through us, that is that recommitting to leaning into that everyday wonder that can snatch true victory out of the jaws of what we were tempted to call defeat. So we stop, we check our thinking, we remember who God is and who we are, we look to see what we can learn, what new opportunities there are, and we repent, we get ourselves on that back road, we re-choose what it is that we want, and we recommit to our greater purpose. And when we do all that, we work with what Thomas More calls the alchemy of failure. In other words, we take this thing that we might have been tempted to call failure, and maybe the World of Agreement did, to transform us, to grow us, to evolve us, to renew us, to change that lead from alchemy into gold, the gold of spirit in action. So failure is just, a fabulous step. And you know, maybe it's part of what I like to call, I think God is a conspiracy. I think God will do anything to be in connection with us, to get us to turn to it. Not because it wants to control or fix us, but because it's longing, and you find this in Islam actually, it's longing to connect with us. And, you know, when we think we can do it all by ourselves, Reverend Kathy Ann David and my first teacher, you know, she said, those of us who are competent go a long way before we finally fall on our face, where those of us who don't think we're that competent, we figured out to turn to God earlier, save ourselves a lot of time. I can't tell you, since I've been in this teaching, how many times could have had a V8 meant. I could have prayed about this. I could have turned to God about this. I could have leaned into that everyday wonder that is God to have this go a different way. So I'm going to end with a little story. Sometimes we start with the story, this one ends. When I felt like it was time for me to take my step in to be a senior minister, I did called candidating. That's what David did too. It's like being an actor. You go to different communities. Well, I went to Grass Valley, California. I'd gone to some other ones, went to Grass Valley. I loved it. I had a cousin I don't get to see who lives there, and she gets metaphysics. Great area, great restaurants, great culture. I was so excited, loved the community, met people, had some time to interchange with some folks and do even a little counseling. I loved it. The president of the board loved me. And she was saying, you know, we do have one more person coming to candidate, but, you know, really, how soon can you move? And as I was sitting there waiting to give my talk, the music came on, and it was an old song I remember actually from being in awareness trainings. Just let your love flow like a bird on a, you know, it's that song. So I don't need to keep singing, please. And I was like, oh, this old song from these old days, this is here to affirm me. Oh, I'm so grateful. Well, guess what? They didn't choose me. I was so bummed. I was so dismayed. And I was very tempted to go into that, oh man, you just really blew it. And I candidated other places and thought I'd learned stuff. But thank goodness I stopped, and when I looked, I thought, playing that song, Let Your Love Flow, was God's little message to me. Make sure you're not just in that brilliant head of yours, Elizabeth. Be in your heart. Let your love flow. The third candidate who came after me, let her love flow, and that's what that community wanted and needed at the time. Hello? So that's kind of what I was missing. But when I said, okay, if I didn't get that one that really looked great, really looked like what I wanted, there must be something better for me. I can't think what it is right now, but I trust the infinite. So I went to Monterey, California. Man, was that a tubey place to live. Just kidding. It was gorgeous, but more than that, I had just completed my marriage of 25 plus years before I went down. We did it very amicably, very collegially. I went down, and even though this is not what any of that women's magazines would tell us to do, within a year, I was in a committed relationship, and I have been married to this wonderful person who's going to go, oh God, I didn't know you were going to say that. But for 11 years. And who could, you know, even the thought of dating after, 30, 40 years, that just sent me into a panic because I'd never really dated before anyway. So I leaned into the wonder. I knew God had something better for me. I saw what I could learn from the process and recommitted. So I invite you to take everything in your life, even those things that seem like failures, mistakes, and missteps, and lean into that wonder. No, God's got you, and God's got something beautiful and wonderful for you. Let's pray. So, I am just turning my attention to knowing that there is that infinite presence that is pure love, that is pure joy, that is good in all its unfolding ways, and greater good than any of us can ever imagine is that infinite presence that I call God. And that presence, through its infinite intelligence and through the fact that there is no time, no space, no place where God is not, no place we could ever be, even in the depths of our own sometimes misery and delusions, that infinite is present right there, ready to lift us, ready to guide us, ready to give of itself, its wisdom, its love, its creativity. And so I speak the word for each and every person here that wherever we find ourselves in our lives, day in, day out, there is a great path of beauty that each of us is being led to. I call it beauty. You could call it a path of good. You could call it a path of prosperity, a path of joy, a path of success. That each of us, as we remember to turn to God, to remember who and whose we are, to lean into everyday wonder, that we are lifted, that we are brought forward, that we, in fact, are made new, and through that alchemy that is God, when we remember it, that we go forward stronger, wiser, more precious than before. I give thanks to know that this is so. I give thanks to know that each of us is an ever-evolving expression of the One. And I know that all is well. And so it is. Amen.
Release your cringe. Love without waiting, slowly unhinge. You ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound, unbound. You can stop waiting for love to find you. Look inside your heart. Love's already who you are. Already who you are. So lift up your voice, lift it up now. Let it be heard, let it be heard. Tell me your story, tell it to me, and don't leave out a word. No, not a word, no. Just like you, and you ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So
And thank you, Reverend Liz. I realize that we are behind the clock. We're just going to pretend we're not. We started a little late. We're just going to keep going. Right now we have our collection time, as you can see. I invite the prosperity stewards to join me up here. And I'll point out that in the back of most of the chairs is an envelope. This is if you wish to donate cash. This is how we fund our organization. So if you wish to donate cash and get credit, this is what you can use these envelopes. It helps us keep track. Otherwise, it's anonymous. All right. Please join me. I think we have something we're supposed to say together. Another slide, perhaps? There it is. Infinite love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am,
All that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive abundantly.
abundantly. And so it is.
From the love of pure spirit within me, I bless this gift. I send it forth to heal, bless, and prosper. It is evidence of my faith and my belief. It does good work in the world, and it returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is. From the love of pure spirit within me, I bless this gift. I send it forth to heal, bless, and prosper. It is evidence of my faith and my belief. It does good work in the world, and it returns to me multiplied abundantly. And it returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is.
Thank you all. Now, it's kind of crowded up here, but I'm supposed to serve. I got you guys. If you will join me in blessing this offering today, knowing this is our overflow, we give from our overflow at all times, and what happens when we give from our overflow? We keep getting flow. So, feel the flow, embrace the flow. Let's dance in it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Blessings on you all. And so it is. All right. I will say, if we had a second practitioner today, which we don't, they would have brought up the prayer box. The prayer box is in the corner back there by the candle, and it is a place for you to deposit prayers you would request from the practitioner body. We're going to eventually stuff all the chairs so that they're looking at you while you're sitting there. And you go, oh, maybe I will. It's really, really a powerful thing to have people praying for you. And all it takes is a little ink. So I invite you to fill out a prayer box. No, just fill the prayer box with prayers. And I will now give you Susan Kibbe with our announcement team.
Hi, it says good morning, but I'm going to modify that to good afternoon. My name is Susan Kibbe with the announcement team, and our new October newsletter is on the website, cslolympia.org. Here's a cool thing. Save the date of next Saturday evening, October 1st, for our Prosperity Campaign launch party. It's our first in-person Prosperity Campaign launch dinner in 3 years. And it's in our own home, which we are all in right now. We will begin at 5:30 with mingling and appetizers. Dinner is at 6. Today is the final day to sign up to join one of the themed tables at the information table in the fellowship hall. Then, save the date for the next Sunday, October 2nd, when special guest Sarada Chiruvolu, a student of Amma Karunimaya, presents a wonderful meditation workshop for $30 following the service. Her book, Home at Last, is available at the information table now for $15. And sign up today for a Sacred Circle, which begins the second week of October. Sacred Circles are small groups that meet weekly in hosts' homes. We explore a spiritually related book with a facilitator guiding the experience. The book for this series is The Wisdom of Money by Alice Bandy. Information and sign-ups are at the information table in the fellowship hall. And in case you're wondering, it's a free thing and it's fabulous. Reverend David will be teaching a prosperity class, The Love of Money, at Unity of Olympia, and you're invited. Class is from 10 to noon, Saturdays, October 8th to November 5th. Information and registration is on their website, unityofolympia.org, under events and classes. Support our youth and be part of our growing youth and family program. A variety of once-a-month positions are available. Contact our youth director, Adrienne, for more information and free training, youth@cslolympia.org. There are 2 open positions on council. If this calls to you or you want more information, please contact Buffy Finkel or Reverend David. Today's talk will be available midweek as a podcast on our website. Our Sunday affirmations and spiritual practices are posted on our Facebook page, CSL Oli. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Just a couple more words briefly. The banquet next weekend, we need sign-ups. We need the count by the end of today. We have to give the caterers a number by Monday. So please sign up. It's going to be a lot of fun. As Susan said, each table is themed, so you get to dress up with your theme, you get to play with your theme, like my table is flowing and good, and we're just going to have fun playing with what flow might look like. There's wizards, there's bling, there's lots of thoughts, and if you want to sign up and there's a blank sign-up sheet out there with no table captain and no theme, take a chance. There's no responsibility other than maybe finding a couple of other people to sit at the table with you. It's going to be a lot of fun. The food will be good. It is an ask because this is our pledge dinner. So we are inviting people to come and commit to supporting this organization for another year. And just think about where you'd be without us. So let's not think about that, actually. That is all I had to say about that. The other thing is a few people asked me today, why is everybody wearing a mask? Well, you know how last weekend we had our grand opening, and we had several people working nonstop for pretty much the whole summer getting ready for this, members of the LLC. And they just worked and 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 then said, we're finally done. And so COVID said, yes, you are. So take care of yourself. This is a lesson in taking care of yourself. If you need to take a time out, take a time out. Spirit's listening. I should take a time out. I should really rest. Spirit's listening. So take a time out. Rest. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. And send loving care to our friends who are now taking their time out. I wasn't going to say anything, but I just wanted This isn't about being afraid. This is about being conscious human beings. So I think that was all. Do I have anything else I'm supposed to say? I saw we have one child. Would you like to come up and give us a rundown on what you guys did today?
We learned how to connect with our knowingness mind, and we learned how to make these spirits, which represents some of the things that you can do to accomplish your dreams. Like this one is brave, and it's one of the things that you can do to accomplish your dream.
Thank you, Heidi. Awesome. Thank you both. So I want to say, as a last note, thank you. Thank you to our fabulous music team. Thank you to our fabulous AV team, Shanique and Holland. Thank you to our announcer. Thank you to our speaker. Thank you to everybody who's been able to help pick up the loose ends of things. You know, lots of people took a week off here, and so we're finding out what needs to be lifted, and we're lifting together once again. So thank you all. Yes, we're not going to circle up today, unless you guys really want to. We can stand in a circle and do elbows. Okay, let's circle up, elbow to elbow.
I think I'm muted. Sort of.